The massive alien dragon named Taijo lay curled in his prison cell. Once his scales had shined like gold in sunlight. Now after 97 years of captivity, they looked dull and sick. His large body barely fit in the round metal room that had been his home for nearly a century. Taijo belonged to a species called Draconians. They came from a distant planet with 2 suns. Unlike humans, Draconians needed water not just to live, but to think clearly. Without water, their minds slowly broke apart, memories faded, thoughts scattered, and water was exactly what his captors denied him. The Voidwalkers, a group of tall gray aliens who controlled this part of space, had caught Taijo during a war long ago. His small scout ship had flown too close to their territory. Instead of killing him, they decided to study him. They wanted to learn about draconian biology, especially how water affected their unique minds. Every day followed the same cruel pattern. The Voidwalkers would activate a small water nozzle above the empty basin in Taijo's cell. A single drop would fall, just enough for him to smell the moisture. Never enough to taste, never enough to ease his burning thirst. Subject continues to respond to water stimulus, a Voidwalker scientist named Ket noted in their daily report. Brain activity increases by 43% when water is detected, then returns to baseline after 8 minutes. Taijo had stopped roaring in protest years ago. His throat had grown too dry for such displays. Instead, he watched the scientist with eyes that had once glowed bright orange but now looked dim and cloudy. In his clearer moments, Taijo remembered his home. He remembered the vast lakes where Draconians would gather to swim together. When submerged, they could share thoughts and memories through the water. It was how they connected, how they built their society. Now those memories felt like dreams from another life. The Voidwalker research station orbited a small moon in a forgotten corner of space. Few visitors ever came here. The Voidwalkers preferred isolation for their most sensitive research. They kept Taijo in the deepest section, behind multiple security doors. The specimen has survived far longer than expected, Supervisor Ket told their team during their centennial review. The resilience of draconian neural pathways without hydration exceeds our models. Continue the current protocol. What the Voidwalkers didn't understand, or perhaps didn't care about, was that Taijo remained conscious through his suffering. Though his thoughts had grown fragmented, his awareness remained. He knew he was being tortured. He knew the war that had led to his capture had ended decades ago. And he knew that without water he would eventually lose himself completely, becoming nothing more than an empty shell. Each day, Taijo performed the same ritual. He would curl his massive body around the empty basin at the center of his cell. He would open his mouth toward the nozzle above, and he would wait hoping that today might be different, that today the water might flow. It never did. The Voidwalkers had designed his prison with careful precision. The air contained exactly the right amount of moisture to keep him alive, but not enough to provide relief. The temperature remained perfectly regulated to prevent dehydration from killing him. They even played recordings of water sounds occasionally, studying how the mere suggestion of water affected his brain patterns. Subject exhibits decreased response to audio stimuli, a junior scientist noted in the 97th year. Possible indication of neural degradation reaching critical threshold. Taijo could feel the truth of this observation. His memories were slipping away faster now. He struggled to remember his own name some days. The faces of his family had faded from his mind long ago. All that remained was thirst. Constant burning thirst that consumed his every thought. The Draconians were a proud species. They had built great cities on their homeworld and explored the stars in ships that gleamed like their scales. They had developed technology that blended with their natural abilities, creating wonders that other species could barely comprehend. Taijo had once been a respected scout, tasked with mapping new territories for his people. Now he was a specimen, a curiosity, a weapon to be understood. In the early years, he had tried to escape. His powerful limbs had strained against the energy restraints until his muscles tore. His wings, once capable of carrying him through storms, now hung useless at his sides. The Voidwalkers had simply observed his efforts, making notes about draconian strength and endurance. After the first decade, Taijo had tried to communicate with his captors. Draconians possessed limited telepathic abilities when properly hydrated. Even in his weakened state, he had managed to project simple thoughts. Please, water, home. The Voidwalkers had responded by fitting him with a neural dampener that blocked his mental projections. They weren't interested in communication. They wanted data. By the 50th year, Taijo had resigned himself to his fate. He conserved his energy, moving only when necessary. His once bright eyes watched the scientists come and go, recording their patterns and routines without much hope of using this information. The worst part wasn't the physical suffering. It was the loneliness. Draconians were social creatures who shared their thoughts freely with their kind. Isolation was almost as painful as thirst. Taijo hadn't connected with another mind in nearly a century. Increase observation frequency, Supervisor Ket ordered in the 97th year. The subject's vital signs show unusual fluctuations. We may be approaching the terminal phase of the experiment. Taijo sensed the change in routine. More Voidwalkers came to observe him now. They took more readings, discussed their findings in hushed tones just beyond his hearing. He understood what it meant. They believed he was finally dying. Perhaps it would be a relief, he thought during one moment of clarity. Perhaps death would end the thirst at last. But deep within Taijo's fading mind, a spark of his original self remained. Draconians lived for centuries under normal conditions. He was still young by his species' standards. If he could just get water, even once, he might recover enough strength to call for help. His people must still be searching for him. The war had ended. Peace treaties had been signed. The Voidwalkers had no right to keep him prisoner. On the 355th day of his 97th year of captivity, something changed in the station's routine. Taijo lifted his head weakly as unfamiliar footsteps approached his cell. The door to the observation room slid open, and for the first time in decades, someone other than a Voidwalker entered. A human. Taijo had encountered humans before his capture. They were small, fragile creatures compared to Draconians, but they possessed remarkable adaptability and compassion. This human wore the uniform of a mechanic, with tools hanging from a belt around her waist. Her dark hair was pulled back and her eyes widened as she caught sight of him through the observation window. For a moment their eyes met. Taijo summoned what little mental strength remained and projected a single desperate thought: help. The human flinched, her hand rising to her temple as if she'd heard something unexpected. She stared at him with an expression Taijo hadn't seen in nearly a century. Not scientific curiosity. Not clinical detachment, concern. As Supervisor Ket returned and hurried the human away, Taijo felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Do-hyun wiped sweat from her forehead as she followed the tall, gray-skinned alien through the station's corridors. She had been working as a mechanic on the Voidwalker research station for 3 months now. The pay was good, better than anything she could find back on Earth's colonies. But the Voidwalkers were strange employers. Cold. Secretive. The cooling system in Section 12 has failed, Supervisor Ket told her. Fix it quickly. Yes, sir, Do-hyun replied. She had learned not to ask too many questions. The Voidwalkers didn't like curiosity. They walked through areas of the station Do-hyun had never seen before. Each door required Ket's handprint to open. Each hallway had more security cameras than the last. Whatever they kept in this part of the station, it was important to them. This area is restricted, Ket said. You will see things you are not meant to see. You will not speak of them to anyone. Do-hyun nodded. I'm just here to fix your cooling system. But as they passed a large observation window, Do-hyun couldn't help but look inside. What she saw made her stop in her tracks. A dragon. A real living dragon. The creature was enormous, at least 20 meters long from nose to tail. Its body was covered in dull bronze scales that might once have been beautiful. 6 limbs, 4 legs, and 2 massive folded wings were held in place by glowing energy restraints. But it was the dragon's eyes that caught Do-hyun's attention. They were orange, like dying embers, and filled with intelligence and pain. Keep moving, Ket ordered. What is that? Do-hyun asked before she could stop herself. A Draconian, a prisoner of war. It is not your concern. As they walked past, Do-hyun felt something brush against her mind. A voice weak but clear. Help. She stumbled, pressing her hand to her head. Is something wrong? Ket asked, eyes narrowing. No, just a headache. The artificial gravity sometimes affects me. Ket seemed satisfied with this explanation and led her to a room filled with machinery. The cooling unit requires repair. You have 2 hours. After the Voidwalker left, Do-hyun got to work. But she couldn't stop thinking about the dragon, the Draconian, and the voice she had heard in her mind. It had sounded so desperate, so pained. The cooling system was complex but familiar. Do-hyun had fixed similar units on other stations. As she worked, she noticed that this system controlled the temperature for several nearby chambers, including the one where the Draconian was kept. Why would they need such precise temperature control? She wondered aloud. When she finished the repairs, Do-hyun took a risk. Instead of calling Ket immediately, she decided to explore. The security in this section was designed to keep people out, not in. She could move freely now that she was inside. She made her way back to the observation window and looked at the Draconian again. It seemed to sense her presence. Its massive head turned slowly toward her and those ember-orange eyes fixed on hers. Human, the voice in her mind said. Water, please. Do-hyun looked around the observation room. There were screens showing the Draconian's vital signs, brain activity, and other data she didn't understand. But one screen caught her attention. It showed a simple diagram of the Draconian's cell, with a water nozzle positioned above an empty basin. Next to the diagram was a log of hydration events. According to the log, the last time the Draconian had received water was 97 years ago. That's impossible, Do-hyun whispered. Nothing could survive that long without water. Not dead, the voice said, but dying. Thirst, century of thirst. Do-hyun felt sick. She had heard stories about Voidwalker research, about how they cared more for knowledge than ethics. But this was beyond cruel. This was torture. She looked at the control panel beneath the screens. There was a button labeled Hydration Sequence. Her hand hovered over it. I could get fired for this, she murmured. Or worse, please, the voice begged. Before she could decide, the door slid open. Supervisor Ket entered with 2 other Voidwalkers. Your work is complete? Ket asked. Do-hyun stepped away from the control panel. Yes, the cooling system is fixed. It should run properly now, Ket nodded. You will be escorted back to the common areas. As Do-hyun left, she felt the Draconian's eyes following her. The desperate plea in her mind faded as she moved farther away, but she couldn't forget it. That night, Do-hyun couldn't sleep. She kept seeing those intelligent eyes, kept hearing that voice begging for water. She had always considered herself a good person. How could she ignore such suffering? The next morning, she approached Haeun, another human who worked on the station as an environmental systems specialist. Can I talk to you about something? Do-hyun asked quietly as they ate breakfast in the common area. Somewhere private? Haeun looked curious but nodded. They found an empty maintenance closet where they could speak without being overheard. Have you ever been to Section 12? Do-hyun asked. Haeun's eyes widened. The restricted research area? No, nobody goes there except the science team. I was there yesterday, fixing a cooling system. Do-hyun took a deep breath. They're keeping a prisoner there. A Draconian. A what? A dragon-like alien. It spoke to me in my mind. It's been kept without water for 97 years, Haeun. They're studying what happens when its species is deprived of water. Haeun looked skeptical. Are you sure? The war with the Draconians ended decades ago. All prisoners were supposed to be released. This one wasn't, and it's suffering. What do you want me to do about it? Do-hyun leaned closer. You work with the water recycling systems. Is there any way to redirect water to Section 12? Just once? Haeun stared at her. You want to interfere with a Voidwalker experiment? Do you know what they do to people who break their rules? I know it's risky, but you didn't see this creature, Haeun. It's been tortured for a century. I can't just do nothing. Haeun was quiet for a long moment. I'd need to see it myself. To be sure, how? There's a maintenance check scheduled for the life support systems tomorrow. I could request Section 12 be included, claim it's standard procedure. Do-hyun nodded. Thank you. The next day, Do-hyun found a reason to return to Section 12. She claimed the cooling system needed a follow-up check. The Voidwalkers were reluctant, but allowed it when she explained that faulty cooling could damage their equipment. While she pretended to examine the cooling unit, Haeun arrived with her own team to inspect the life support systems. As planned, Haeun found a reason to visit the Draconian's chamber. Later, they met in the same maintenance closet. You were right, Haeun said, her face pale. That poor creature. I've never seen anything like it. Will you help me? Do-hyun asked. Haeun nodded slowly. There's a station-wide systems check scheduled in 3 days. All non-essential systems will be shut down briefly. During that window, I could redirect water from the reserve tanks to the Draconian cell. Would it trigger alarms? Not if we time it right. The security systems will be rebooting. We'd have maybe 2 minutes. Do-hyun thought about the risks. If they were caught, they would lose their jobs at best. At worst, they might be detained for interfering with Voidwalker research. But the image of those suffering eyes wouldn't leave her mind. Let's do it, she said. For the next 3 days. Do-hyun found excuses to visit Section 12. Each time, she stopped briefly at the observation window. The Draconian, she had learned from a data terminal that its name was Taejo, seemed to grow more alert with each visit, as if her presence gave it hope. Soon she projected in her thoughts, not knowing if Taejo could hear her. Water soon. On the 3rd day, as she stood before the window, she felt a clearer response. Grateful. Remember you. The day of the systems check arrived. Do-hyun and Haeun positioned themselves near Section 12, claiming they needed to monitor the cooling and life support systems during the reboot. All personnel, prepare for systems check, announced a voice over the station's speakers. Non-essential systems will shut down in 3 minutes. Do-hyun looked at Haeun. Ready? Haeun nodded, her hands shaking slightly as she accessed her control panel. Once the security systems go offline, I'll have exactly 120 seconds to redirect the water and cover our tracks. They waited, hearts pounding as the countdown continued. Systems check commencing now. The lights flickered, and the constant hum of machinery fell silent. Haeun's fingers flew across her control panel. Redirecting water now, she whispered. Do-hyun hurried to the observation window. Inside Taejo's cell, the water nozzle above the basin had come to life. Clear water poured down in a steady stream. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Taejo's entire body trembled as water poured from the ceiling of his cell. For 97 years he had dreamed of this moment. Now it was happening, and he could hardly believe it. The water splashed into the basin and overflowed, spreading across the floor. Taejo dragged himself forward, his weakened limbs shaking with effort. When the cool liquid touched his scales, a shock ran through his body. From the observation window, Do-hyun watched in amazement. The dull bronze of Taejo's scales began to change. Where water touched, the color brightened to a rich copper gold that seemed to glow from within. It was like watching a dead thing come back to life. 30 seconds left. Haeun whispered urgently from her control panel. The systems will reboot soon. Taejo opened his massive jaws and let the water flow into his mouth. His long forked tongue, dry and cracked from decades without moisture, absorbed the precious liquid. His throat, unused to swallowing, worked painfully as he drank for the first time in a century. The change was dramatic. Taejo's eyes, once dim like dying embers, now glowed bright orange. His body, which had been lying limp on the floor, began to straighten. The muscles under his scales tightened and flexed. Most remarkable was what happened in Do-hyun's mind. The weak, fragmented voice she had heard before was suddenly clear and strong. Human friend. You have saved me. A century of thirst ended by your kindness. The words formed perfect pictures in her mind, not just sounds, but images and feelings too. She felt Taejo's relief, his gratitude, and something else. Hope. 10 seconds, Haeun called. We need to go. Do-hyun couldn't tear her eyes away from the transformation happening before her. Taejo was standing now, his full height impressive even with his wings still bound by energy restraints. His head nearly touched the ceiling of the cell. Water dripped from his scales, each droplet seeming to sink into his body rather than falling to the floor. My mind clears. My strength returns. I remember who I am. Now Do-hyun. Haeun grabbed her arm. The systems are coming back online. Reluctantly, Do-hyun turned away from the window. They hurried from the observation room just as the lights flickered back on. The constant hum of machinery resumed throughout the station. Did we cover our tracks? Do-hyun asked as they walked quickly down the corridor. Haeun nodded. I redirected the water through 3 different subsystems. It will look like a minor malfunction during the reboot. Nothing that would raise alarms. And Taejo? Will he be okay? I don't know. I've never seen a Draconian before, but he certainly looked better after getting water. They separated, each returning to their regular duties. Do-hyun spent the rest of the day fixing minor issues caused by the systems check, all while thinking about Taejo. Had that brief drink been enough? Would the Voidwalkers notice the change in him? That night, lying in her bunk, Do-hyun was startled by a voice in her mind. Do-hyun. She sat up, looking around her small room. There was no one there, do not fear. It is Taijo. The water you gave me has restored my telepathic abilities. I can reach your mind now, even from my cell. How do you know my name? She whispered. I saw it in your thoughts when you stood before my window. Your mind is open, easy to read. Your friend is Heian. You both risked much to help me. Are you okay? Did the water help? More than you can imagine. For a draconian, water does not just quench thirst. It powers our minds. Our bodies can survive without it, but our thoughts fragment. Our memories fade. With just that small drink, I have remembered who I am. What I am. And what are you? I am Taijo, Scout Commander of the 3rd Fleet of the Draconian Collective. I was captured during the final battle of the 3rd Expansion War, 97 years ago. My people believe me dead. Do-Yun felt a chill. You're a military officer? I was. The war ended long ago. Our peoples signed peace treaties. The Voidwalkers promised to release all prisoners but they kept you. Yes, to study, to learn our weaknesses. They discovered that without water, a draconian's telepathic abilities fade. They kept me thirsty to keep me weak. Do-Hyun thought about this. What will happen now? Will they notice the change in you? They have already noticed. The scientists were surprised by my transformation today. They ran many tests. They do not yet know the cause, but they will investigate. Will they punish you? No. They do not see me as a being capable of planning or acting. They see me as a specimen. They will search for a malfunction in their systems. Which they'll find, Do-Hyun said worriedly. Hyun tried to hide what we did, but the Voidwalkers are thorough. It does not matter. You have given me more than water, Do-Hyun. You have given me hope, and with hope comes strength. The next day, Do-Hyun tried to act normal. She went about her regular duties, fixing broken equipment and maintaining the station's systems, but her mind kept returning to Taijo. She wondered what the Voidwalkers were doing to him now that he had changed. During her lunch break, she found Hyun in the common area. Have you heard anything? Do-Hyun asked quietly. About Section 12? Hyun shook her head. Nothing official. But there's been increased activity there. More scientists coming and going. Something's happening. Taijo spoke to me last night, Do-Hyun admitted. In my mind. He can reach me telepathically now because of the water. Hyun's eyes widened. That's incredible. And dangerous. If the Voidwalkers find out we helped him, I know. But I couldn't just leave him suffering. What did he say? He's a military officer, or was before his capture. He was taken prisoner during the war and should have been released when peace was declared. Hyun frowned. That's against interstellar law. Even the Voidwalkers have to follow the peace treaties. They kept him to study him, to learn about draconian weaknesses. Before Hyun could respond, an announcement came over the station's speakers. Attention all personnel. Due to a security protocol update, access to all research sections will be restricted for the next 24 hours. Maintenance requests must be approved by Supervisor Ket. Do-Hyun and Hyun exchanged worried looks. They know something happened, Hyun whispered. That night, Taejo's voice came to Do-Hyun again as she lay in her bunk. They are suspicious. The scientists cannot explain my transformation. They have reviewed the security logs but found nothing because of Hyun's work. Now they are testing the water systems. Will they find evidence of what we did? Perhaps. But it no longer matters. What you have done cannot be undone. My mind is clear now. My strength grows. And I have remembered something important. What's that? Draconians never travel alone. When I was captured, I sent a distress signal to my fleet. The signal was too weak to reach them before I was brought to this station. But now, with my telepathic abilities restored, I can send it again. Stronger, clearer. Do-Hyun sat up in her bunk. You're calling for help? Yes, my people will hear me now. They will come. But that could start another war. The Voidwalkers won't just let you go. There will be no war. The peace treaties protect me. I am a prisoner who should have been released decades ago. My people will come with diplomats, not warships. Do-Hyun wasn't so sure. She had worked for the Voidwalkers long enough to know they didn't give up their research easily. How long will it take for your people to come? That depends on how far away the nearest draconian ship is. Days perhaps, or weeks. But they will come. And when they do, I would ask a favor of you and Hyun. What favor? Be my witnesses. Tell them how I was kept. Show them what the Voidwalkers have done. Your testimony will prevent violence. The Voidwalkers respect human observers. They will not risk breaking the peace treaties in front of you. Do-hyun thought about this. Being a witness could put her in danger. The Voidwalkers might see her as a traitor for helping Taejo, but she couldn't abandon him now. I'll do it, she said, and I'm sure Haeun will too. Thank you, Do-hyun. Rest now. There is much to do in the days ahead. As Taejo's presence faded from her mind, Do-hyun lay back on her bunk. She had come to this station to earn money to save for her future. She never expected to get involved in interstellar politics or to befriend an alien dragon. But she didn't regret giving Taejo water. No living being deserved to suffer as he had, and if helping him meant standing up to the Voidwalkers, then that's what she would do. With that thought, she drifted into an uneasy sleep, dreaming of copper-gold scales and bright orange eyes. 3 days after giving Taejo water, Do-hyun was called to Supervisor Ket's office. Her heart beat fast as she walked through the station's corridors. Had they discovered what she and Haeun had done? Ket sat behind a large desk, their gray skin looking paler than usual under the bright lights. 2 other Voidwalkers stood nearby, wearing the blue uniforms of security officers. Mechanic Do-hyun, Ket said. You were in Section 12 4 days ago. It wasn't a question. Do-hyun nodded. Yes, sir. I was fixing the cooling system. And you returned during the systems check. Yes, to make sure the repairs held during the reboot. Ket's large black eyes studied her face. Voidwalkers were hard to read. Their expressions didn't change much, but Do-hyun sensed anger beneath Ket's calm voice. Something happened in Section 12 during the systems check. A specimen experienced an unexpected change. We have reviewed all logs and found a brief water flow to the specimen's chamber. The logs were altered to hide this. Do-hyun tried to keep her face neutral. I don't know anything about that, sir. I was just monitoring the cooling system. The water came from the cooling reserve tanks. The same system you were repairing. Many systems use those tanks. It could have been a malfunction during the reboot. Ket was silent for a long moment. We have questioned environmental specialist Haeun. She claims no knowledge of this incident. Do-hyun felt relief. Haeun hadn't confessed or blamed her. However, Ket continued, we find it suspicious that both of you were in Section 12 during the exact time when this occurred. We were doing our jobs, sir. Ket stood up. You are restricted from entering Section 12 until our investigation is complete. If we find evidence that you interfered with our research, you will face serious consequences. I understand, sir. You are dismissed. Do-hyun left the office, her legs shaking. In the corridor, she found Haeun waiting for her. They questioned me too, Haeun whispered as they walked away from Ket's office. They suspect us, but they don't have proof. Yet, Do-hyun said. They'll keep looking. What do we do now? We wait. Taejo said his people will come for him. We just need to stay out of trouble until then. That night, Taejo's voice came to Do-hyun again. The Voidwalkers are angry. They know something happened but cannot prove who did it. They have increased security around my cell. Are you okay? Do-hyun asked. Have they done anything to you? They have run many tests. Taken samples of my scales, my blood. They are fascinated by the change in me. They do not understand how a single drink of water could restore me so much. Have you contacted your people? Yes, I have sent the distress signal continuously for 3 days. Today I received a response. A Draconian scout ship has detected my call. They are coming. Do-hyun felt both relief and fear. How long? 5 days. They must travel carefully through Voidwalker space. They do not wish to provoke conflict. What will happen when they arrive? They will demand my release under the terms of the peace treaty. They will bring human diplomats as witnesses. The Voidwalkers will have no choice but to free me. I hope you're right. There is something else, Do-hyun. Something important. The Voidwalkers have learned much from studying me. They know now that water is key to Draconian power. This knowledge could threaten my people in the future. What can we do about that? Their research data must not leave the station. When my people come, we must ensure all records of their experiments are destroyed. Do-hyun frowned. That sounds dangerous and illegal. What they did to me was illegal. 97 years of torture hidden from the galaxy. Would you let them keep the rewards of such cruelty? She had no answer for that. The next day, Do-hyun tried to act normal. She fixed broken equipment, ate meals in the common area, and avoided Section 12. But she noticed more security officers in the corridors. The The Voidwalkers were watching everyone closely. During her lunch break, she sat with Haeyun in a quiet corner of the common area. Taijo contacted me again, she whispered. His people are coming. They'll be here in 5 days. Haeyun looked relieved. Good. Maybe then we can get off this station. I don't like how the Voidwalkers are watching us. There's something else. Taijo wants us to help destroy the research data about him. He says the Voidwalkers have learned too much about draconian weaknesses. Haeyun's eyes widened. That's crazy. The main database is heavily protected. We'd never get access. But you know the station's systems better than anyone. Is there a way? Haeyun thought for a moment. Maybe. During a full emergency shutdown, the backup systems take over. Those are less secure, but we'd need a major emergency to trigger that kind of shutdown. Like what? A fire in a critical area. A breach in the outer hull. Something that would force them to activate emergency protocols. Do-hyun nodded slowly. Let me think about it. We have 5 days. That night, Do-hyun couldn't sleep. She paced in her small room, thinking about what Taijo had asked. Destroying research data was a serious crime. She could lose her job, be blacklisted from working on any station again. She might even face prison time. But then she remembered Taigo's suffering. 97 years without water. 97 years of tests and samples and pain, all hidden from the galaxy, against the peace treaties that should have protected him. You are troubled. Taijo's voice came to her mind. I'm thinking about what you asked. About destroying the research data. You fear the consequences. Yes, it's a big risk. I understand. I would not ask if there were another way. But the Voidwalkers have learned too much. They know now that by controlling our access to water, they can control our minds, our abilities. This knowledge could lead to more suffering for my people. Do-hyun sat on her bunk. Tell me more about your people. About Draconians. We are an ancient species. We evolved on a world with 2 suns and vast oceans. Water shapes our biology, our society, our technology. When submerged, we can share thoughts across great distances. Our cities are built around lakes and rivers where we gather to connect our minds. That sounds beautiful. It is. We are not a warlike people by nature. The conflict with the Voidwalkers began when they tried to claim worlds in our territory. Worlds with water resources we need to survive. And now the war is over. Yes. We share the galaxy now, with borders and treaties to keep peace. But if the Voidwalkers learn to use water as a weapon against us, Do-hyun understood. The research done on Taijo wasn't just cruel, it was dangerous. It could upset the fragile peace between species. I'll help you, she decided. But we need a plan that won't put anyone in danger. No fires, no hull breaches, nothing that could hurt people on this station. Of course, I would not ask you to risk lives. Over the next 2 days, Do-hyun and Haeyun worked secretly on their plan. Haeyun discovered that the station would perform a routine power grid test in 3 days, just before the Draconian ship was due to arrive. During the test, power will cycle through different sections, Haeyun explained. There's a brief window when the security systems switch from main power to backup. If we time it right, we could access the research database. Can we do it without being caught? Do-hyun asked. Maybe. I can create a maintenance issue that would give us access to the main server room, but we'd only have minutes before someone noticed. They refined their plan, working out timing and backup options. It was risky but possible. On the night before the power grid test, Taijo contacted Do-hyun again. My people are close. Their ship will arrive tomorrow after your sun cycle. They have contacted human diplomats who will meet them here. Good. We have a plan to access the research data during the power grid test tomorrow. If it works, all records of their experiments on you will be erased. Thank you, Do-hyun. You have shown more kindness to me than any being in the past century. I will not forget this. I just did what was right. No one deserves what they did to you. When this is over, would you consider visiting my homeworld? You would be welcomed as a friend of the Draconian people. Do-hyun smiled at the thought. I'd like that. I've never seen a world with 2 suns. It is beautiful. The light reflects off our cities in ways that humans find breathtaking. And the lakes, they glow at night with bioluminescent plants that respond to our thoughts. It sounds amazing. Rest now, Do-hyun. Tomorrow will test us all. As Taijo's presence faded from her mind, Do-hyun lay back on her bunk. Tomorrow would indeed be challenging. They would attempt to erase decades of research data, then face the arrival of a draconian ship. The Voidwalkers would be angry, perhaps dangerous, but she didn't regret her choices. Sometimes doing the right thing meant taking risks, and helping Taijo ending his suffering. Securing his freedom was definitely the right thing. With that thought, she finally drifted to sleep, dreaming of lakes that glowed with thought and cities that shimmered under twin suns. The day of the power grid test arrived. Do-Hyun woke early, her stomach tight with worry. Today they would try to erase the Voidwalkers' research data. Today Taejo's people would come for him. She met Haeun in the maintenance bay. They gathered tools and equipment for their fake repair job. "Are you ready?" Haeun asked quietly. Do-Hyun nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The power grid test starts at 1300 hours. "We need to be in position by then." They went about their normal duties all morning, trying to act natural. Do-Hyun fixed a broken air filter in the common area. Haeun checked the water recycling systems. All the while they watched the time. At 12:45 hours, they made their move. Haeun called in a maintenance alert for the server room cooling system. "Temperature rising in server bank 4, she reported, requesting immediate maintenance. They were given clearance to enter the server room, a large chamber filled with tall black units that hummed with power. The main research database was stored here, along with all the station's other important information. "We have 15 minutes before the power test begins," Haeun whispered as they pretended to check the cooling systems. "Once it starts, we'll have a 2-minute window when the security protocols reset." Do-Hyun nodded, her hands shaking slightly as she opened an access panel. "What do I need to do?" "When I give the signal, connect this device to the main data port." Haeun handed her a small black box. "It contains a program that will search for and delete all files related to draconian research. Will it work?" "It should. I designed it to look like a system error, like the files were corrupted during the power transfer." They worked quietly, positioning themselves near the main server bank. At exactly 1300 hours, an announcement came over the speakers. "Attention all personnel. Power grid test commencing now. Expect brief interruptions to non-essential systems." The lights flickered. The constant hum of the servers changed pitch as they switched to backup power. "Now," Haeun whispered. Do-Hyun quickly connected the small black box to the data port. Its screen lit up, showing lines of code running quickly. "How long will it take?" she asked. 30 seconds to find the files, another 30 to delete them." Those 60 seconds felt like hours. Do-Hyun kept glancing at the door, expecting security officers to burst in at any moment. The small box beeped softly as it worked. "Someone's coming," Haeun warned, looking at her tablet which showed the corridor security feed. Do-Hyun's heart raced. "What do we do?" "Keep working. Act normal." "The program is almost done." The door slid open. A Voidwalker technician entered, looking surprised to see them. "What are you doing here?" they asked. "Cooling system maintenance," Haeun said calmly. "There was an alert about rising temperatures in server bank 4. The technician frowned. "I received no such alert." "Strange," Haeun said, checking her tablet. "It's right here in the system." While they talked, Do-Hyun carefully disconnected the black box, slipping it into her tool belt. The screen had shown process complete just before she removed it. "The cooling system seems fine now," she said. "Maybe it was just a glitch because of the power test." The technician still looked suspicious but nodded. "Finish your work quickly. This area should be clear during the test." "We're done," Haeun said. "Just closing up now." They gathered their tools and left the server room, walking calmly until they were several corridors away. "Did it work?" Do-Hyun whispered. Haeun checked the small device. "Yes. All files containing draconian research data have been corrupted beyond recovery. It will look like a power surge during the test caused it." Do-Hyun felt a mix of relief and worry. They had succeeded. But what would happen when the Voidwalkers discovered their loss? She didn't have to wait long to find out. 2 hours later, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors. "Attention all personnel," came an urgent announcement. "Unknown vessel approaching. All non-security staff return to quarters immediately." "They are here," Taejo's voice came to Do-Hyun's mind. "My people have arrived. What should we do?" she asked silently. "Go to your quarters as ordered. Wait. When the time is right, I will call for you." Do-Hyun and Haeun separated, each returning to their rooms as instructed. Through her small window, Do-hyun could see a ship approaching the station. It was unlike any vessel she had seen before, long and sleek with a surface that shimmered like Taijo's scales. Copper gold in the starlight. The station's communication system crackled with activity. Though she couldn't hear what was being said, Do-hyun knew the Draconians were making contact with the Voidwalkers. An hour passed, then two. Do-hyun paced in her small room, waiting for news, waiting for Taijo's voice. Suddenly, her door slid open. Two Voidwalker security officers stood there. "Come with us," one ordered. "Where are we going?" Do-hyun asked, her heart pounding. "The command center. Your presence is requested." They led her through corridors filled with nervous-looking staff. Something big was happening. When they reached the command center, Do-hyun was surprised to see Haeun already there, standing nervously near the main view screen. On the screen was the face of a Draconian. Like Taijo, it had scales that shimmered copper gold, but its eyes were deep blue rather than orange. Beside it stood a human woman in the formal uniform of the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. Supervisor Ket stood before the screen, their posture rigid with tension. "These are the humans who work in our maintenance division," Ket said, gesturing to Do-hyun and Haeun. The human diplomat leaned forward. "My name is Ambassador Chen. The Draconian Collective has requested that all humans on this station be present as witnesses for what follows. Do you understand?" Do-hyun nodded. "Yes, Ambassador." "Good. The Draconians have evidence that one of their military officers, Scout Commander Taijo, has been illegally detained on this station for 97 years, in violation of the peace treaties signed after the Third Expansion War." Ket's gray skin seemed to pale further. "We have no record of such a prisoner." "That is a lie," the Draconian on the screen said, its voice deep and resonant. "Our telepath has made contact with Taijo. We know he is here and we know what has been done to him." Ambassador Chen's expression was stern. "Under the terms of the peace treaty, I am authorized to conduct an inspection of this station. The Draconian vessel will dock and a delegation will board. Any attempt to prevent this will be considered an act of war." Ket had no choice but to agree. "We will allow the inspection." Within an hour, the Draconian ship had docked with the station. The delegation that entered was impressive. 3 Draconians, each at least 15 feet tall, accompanied by Ambassador Chen and 2 human security officers. The lead Draconian, the one whose face had been on the view screen, introduced himself as Fleet Commander Jiho. "Take us to Taijo," he demanded. Ket led the way to Section 12, with Do-hyun and Haeun following behind with the delegation. When they reached Taijo's cell, Commander Jiho let out a sound like thunder. "This is how you treat a prisoner of war?" he roared, seeing the energy restraints that still bound Taijo. "This is torture." Ambassador Chen's face showed shock and disgust. "Release him immediately," she ordered Ket. "This is a clear violation of the peace treaty." Ket hesitated, then pressed their hand to the control panel. The energy restraints disappeared. Taijo stood to his full height, his wings extending slightly in the confined space. "Do-hyun," his voice came to her mind. "Step forward." She moved to the front of the group. "This human," Taijo said aloud, his voice rough from disuse, "showed me kindness when all others showed cruelty. She gave me water when I had known only thirst for a century. She is under my protection." Commander Jiho looked at Do-hyun with respect. "The Draconian Collective thanks you, human. Your actions honor your species." "I just did what was right," Do-hyun said simply. "The research data," Ket suddenly said. "It's gone. Corrupted during the power test today." Commander Jiho's eyes narrowed. "Convenient. But it does not matter. We have seen enough. Taijo will return with us, and this incident will be reported to the Interstellar Council." "What about us?" Haeun asked quietly. Ambassador Chen turned to them. "Your contracts with the Voidwalkers are terminated. You will return with us to human space. Your testimony about what you've seen here will be valuable." As Taijo was helped from his cell by his fellow Draconians, he paused beside Do-hyun. "My offer stands." His voice came to her mind. "You would be welcome on my homeworld." "I'd like that," she replied silently. The journey back to the docking bay was tense but uneventful. The Voidwalkers, knowing they had been caught violating the peace treaty, did not interfere. Taijo walked slowly, still weak from his long captivity, but with each step he seemed to grow stronger. Before boarding the Draconian ship, Taijo turned to address Supervisor Ket. For 97 years, you denied me water to keep me weak, he said, his voice carrying through the docking bay. You studied my suffering and called it science. Remember this. It was not your technology that defeated me, but simple cruelty. And it was not your science that failed you, but your lack of compassion. He turned away from Ket and looked at Do-hyun and Hyun. And remember this also. It was not advanced weapons or great power that freed me, but simple kindness. A mechanic who saw suffering and could not walk away. A drink of water, freely given. With those words, Taeyo boarded the ship with his people. Do-hyun and Hyun followed, along with Ambassador Chen and her team. As the ship undocked from the station, Do-hyun looked out a viewport at the Void Walker research facility growing smaller in the distance. She had arrived there 6 months ago looking for good pay. She was leaving with something far more valuable, the friendship of an alien dragon and the knowledge that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the course of history. The draconian ship accelerated away from the station, its engines glowing bright against the darkness of space. Ahead lay Earth, and beyond that a world with 2 suns and lakes that glowed with thought. Do-hyun smiled. She had given Taeyo his first drink in a century. He had given her the stars.